What's up, everyone? My name is ZayNews, and this is the ZayNews Podcast, where we talk about all things hoops, whether it's the NBA, college basketball, youth basketball, you name it. If it's about hoops, then we talk about it here. If you like the content, make sure to like, subscribe, tell a friend to tell a friend. We want to create a community here. We want to create a place where we can all talk about the game that we love. So leave me comments, ask me questions. Let me know if my take is absolute trash, or let me know if I'm on the money, right? I want to hear it all, and I want to hear different perspectives, things that maybe I didn't think about. Today, there's a few different things I want to talk about, but I have to say, it's been a long summer. Now, there's been a lot of great basketball over the summer, right? We had the FIBA games, we had the WNBA that just finished up. A'ja Wilson, tip your hat off to her, just had the best, not just WNBA season ever, but quite possibly the best basketball season ever at the highest level. Capped it off by winning the WNBA championship. But MVP, co-defensive player of the year, finals MVP, finals champion, and also I think someone said that she was the scoring champ as well. Now I know the scoring race was pretty neck and neck between her and Nafisa, but maybe she edged it out. I didn't catch that, but still, right? There's been a ton of great basketball over the summer, but nothing's like the NBA, right? We got to keep it real. Nothing's like the NBA, and the NBA is on our it's right there, right. It's getting ready to start. We got about 2 weeks. The preseason started, and we just got a lot of interesting stuff to talk about. So I'm going to talk mostly, mostly about the NBA today, and just what we can expect for the upcoming season, things that I've noticed in the preseason, things that I've noticed in the off season, uh, storylines that I'm very interested to follow, and I just want to get your guys' perspective on it as well, and see if you're feeling the same way. So without further ado, let's get into it. So I wanted to start here because I was watching the Clippers preseason game the other day, and I can't tell you how refreshing it was to see Kawhi Leonard playing in an NBA preseason game. Now, I don't know about you guys, but anytime a guy, struggles with injuries, especially a guy of Kawhi's caliber, it sucks, right? Because it's essentially, taking away from the game, right? Great players not being able to play on the court, it diminishes the quality of the game to a certain extent, because then we're not getting, the highest level of competition that we could possibly be getting, right? And injuries happen, right? It's just part of the game, but still, right? You want to see guys healthy, you want to see guys competing at a high level. And I'm very excited to see Kawhi Leonard be able to come into a season healthy, them probably formulate a plan, I would imagine, on how they're going to, monitor his minutes and allow him to continue playing throughout the season, manage that wear and tear, manage the previous injuries, all that sort of stuff. So he could play, more games than he's played, hopefully, the past 2-3 seasons. I think that would be a huge win for Kawhi. And, I know he has the allegations going on, all this sort of stuff, with the Clippers as a franchise and the NBA and all that sort of stuff. I said this a while ago, but I'll just go ahead and reiterate it now. When those allegations first came out, and I don't want to butcher the reporter's name, but I think his name was Pablo Torres. Correct me if I'm wrong. My initial reaction was, I don't care, right? And the reason I didn't care is because I knew that they were going to have to do a investigation. The NBA was. They were going to hire a private investigation firm to go dig, do more research, all that sort of stuff. But I also know that the NBA is very privy and knowledgeable about everything that's going on in the league, right? The front office, they always know what's going on. So for me, when I heard all these allegations, it came out in a way that made it seem like the NBA didn't already know what was happening. And sure enough, just yesterday, ESPN released a statement that the NBA signed off on the advertising deal that the Clippers made with, and I forget the name. Was it Aspire? Something, the tree company. So they knew, right? They knew they had, checks and balances on the deal that was being made. So that's why I didn't get all worked up about it, because I know the NBA is always in the know. They have their ear on the pulse of the league, right? They they just know what's going on. So as much as this was a story and something interesting to talk about over the summer, it was just something that I never really cared about, to be honest with you, because you don't put stuff past the NBA. And if something somehow does get past them in today's league, you best believe that it's going to get dealt with. There's going to be harsh sentences, put out for the Clippers, probably for Kawhi, um, for all parties included. You know what I'm saying? And I knew it would get dealt with in the manner that they had to deal with it, and it would just be whatever from there. But it was never something that really like I was concerned about, or something that stressed me out, or something that I felt like was cheating, or you know what I'm saying? Like I knew the information would come out, and it just kind of took time. So I think the investigation is still ongoing. I don't want to make it seem like everything is um, final now that that statement was released. But point being is like it will get addressed, things will get fixed, but it's just not going to change much, right? It's not going to change much, so it never created much of a rise out of me. But anyways, back to the more important stuff. I'm really happy to see Kawhi Leonard on a basketball court, playing, being healthy, feeling good, moving good. He looked really good on the reps that he was getting on the court the other day, and I just hope that continues, that compounds, and he continues to just get more and more polished, feel better, feel more confident, and just continue to be the Kawhi Leonard that we know. Because believe it or not, right, when you come into a season, last season, halfway through, um, it's very hard to get into a rhythm, right? And it's very hard to play to your full potential, even 4 months down the road when they're in the playoffs and they're playing against Denver, right? It's just very, very hard to do that. It takes time, right? So I would imagine we'll see even a better Kawhi this season, as long as he's able to maintain his health than we saw, at the end of last season. I think that's a fair assumption to make, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see Kawhi Leonard play 60 games and play some great basketball. I think that would be a great season for him. But talking more specifically about the Clippers, I have to say, one thing that I was worried about when they accumulated or compiled all this talent, right? They made some great offseason acquisitions. They got John Collins. They signed Chris Paul, obviously, got Brook Lopez. There's a few that I'm missing. I know there's, but you get my point, right? Like they have a very deep roster, one of the deepest rosters in the league. I was Bradley Beal, obviously. I was worried about how all these pieces were going to plug into to play, right? But um, that goes to show that I have to put more respect on Ty Lue's name. You know what I'm saying? Because I don't know why I didn't think about this when it initially happened, but I think Tyronn Lue is the right coach for the job, who's going to be able to really plug all these pieces in together, find a balance between these guys to where, everybody's playing, everybody's contributing, everybody's giving, meaningful minutes to the squad and making an impact and getting the most out of these guys. So I'm excited to see how this whole thing, kind of works, how this engine starts to work once they get up and running and they're in kind of the grit and grind of the season. Because, as an older team, which I think there's a stigma attached to the Clippers because they are one of the older teams in the league, I don't necessarily subscribe to that, right? I think what's nice about the depth of this team and their age is that you'll be able to they're mature enough, they've played enough basketball, they've played more basketball than dang near anybody. I'm sure if you compiled the games of each player and how much they've played, but they'll be able to, and I think this will work out in their favor with the age thing, where James Harden may sit out one night, right? You got Chris Paul to fill in the gap. Kawhi Leonard may sit out one night. You got Bradley Beal who can pick up the scoring. Zubac may need a night out, right? Maybe he rolls his ankle at one point of the season. Brook Lopez can fill in the gap for 5-6 games while he recovers, right? Like it's going to be very easy to be interchangeable with this team, and I think that's going to work in their favor as for them being an older team, and I think it's just going to blossom into something special for them. So as much as I doubted the moves that they made when they initially made them, and I wasn't as high on those moves as a lot of other people were, the more I sit with it, the more I start to watch it unfold and this team be put together, the more I like it, to be honest with you. The more I like it, and I think this team will be great. And I mean, we know what the West is the problem, right? We know how much of a dogfight the West is going to be. But I think come playoff time, we don't even have to talk about injuries or anything like that, because we know if injuries play a role, then that could be a detriment to any team in the league, right? That's just what it is. But I think come playoff time, this could be a special group. And even if they don't win 55 games because they're just not so invested into the regular season as, an OKC might be, a Houston might be, some of these younger teams might be, a Minnesota, I think they could compete with or beat any of those teams if things play out the way that I think they might. OKC, I think they're in a category of their own. But if they have a run in with the Rockets in the first round, especially without Fred VanVleet, I would like the Clippers' chances as it stands today. I would really like the Clippers' chances. And I think, I don't foresee them being a top. They could be a 4 seed, but I definitely don't see them being a top 3 seed as of now. But with that said, I think they have a very real shot at winning that first round matchup. Depending on matchups in the second round, if they could um, line up against like a Denver or something like that again, I think they match up really well with a team like Denver because they can match the size. Plus, they have more scoring on the perimeter, stuff like that. So I think the Clippers are going to be tough. The more I think about it, the more I watch them play, I think they're going to be tough. Again, I was more critical initially, and maybe that's just the Lakers fan in me. But as I see this thing build and them continue to grow, the more I like what the Clippers are doing. And I think they're going to be a really tough team this season, especially come playoff time, right? Like they may be in that 5 to 7 range in terms of playoff seeding, but in terms of talent, in terms of what they can do in the playoffs, that's where you got to watch out for a group like that. For sure, that's where you got to watch out for a group like that. But moving on. This is another team that I wanted to spend some time talking about because they've almost got cast aside because of Jason Tatum's injury, and that is the Boston Celtics, right? So everybody's talking about the Boston Celtics from the perspective of their best player got injured. This is kind of a wash year. And the more I watch this roster, the more I watch these guys play, this team is going to be tough. I think one thing people don't consider, and I said this like 2 months ago, is how much a system matters. And they have a system in place that works and that will win them a lot of games. That is why you see when guys like Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown have sat out in the past, Derek White hits 10 threes. He's having an amazing game, right? Peyton Pritchard comes in off the bench and he has 30. All these guys just step up because their system is just so fluid. It's so easy to plug guys in. And, there's a lot of freedom. There's a lot of freedom in their system that allows for guys to play their best basketball because they're not worried about making mistakes. They're not worried about missing shots. They're encouraged to take these shots, right? And just let the odds fall where the odds fall, right? And more times than not, it's going to work out in their favor. Now, again, there's some drawbacks to that, especially once you get into the playoffs and you're needing to play differently in certain stretches of the game, right, where you need to get downhill more, stop settling for threes. There's definitely drawbacks. But in the regular season, when there's limited time to prepare for teams, there's not that much prep. When your team consistently shoots the three ball better than the team that you're playing against, and it shoots it at more volume, you're just going to be tough to beat. You're going to be tough to beat in that vacuum, right? You're going to be tough to beat in that scenario. And for that reason, I think the Boston Celtics are going to be tough. And I think because Anfernee Simons came into the league at 17, it's been a slow grind for him to get to a player who's now averaging about 20 points in the NBA. We tend to still think of him as the guy he was 4 years ago, 3-4 years ago. And he's not that. That boy is cold. And I think we undervalue how good of a pickup Anfernee Simons is for the Boston Celtics. And I'm very excited to see how things play out for him and for them with him in the roster because I think he's going to be a seamless fit. He's a guy who can really shoot the three ball. He's a guy who can put the ball on the deck. He can get to his spots. He can get downhill. He can get into the lanes, affect the defenses. Right? He's crafty. He's athletic. Oh my goodness! I think he's a great guy to plug into that Boston system. And I wouldn't be surprised if he comes in and he continues to average 20 for Boston because that's just what they need. They've obviously lost some scoring. They lost obviously JT this year, but also Drew Holiday. So he can fill some of that void. Now, some of that void will be filled, it'll get spread out, right? Like Peyton Pritchard's scoring average may go up. Derek White's may go up a little bit. Jaylen Brown's will go up somewhat as well. But also Anfernee as a dog, right? And he can really shoot that ball. And if you just say, hey, shoot 10 threes a game, he's going to make 3.5 to 4 of them. He's going to get to the line a few times. He's going to get a few layups. Maybe his highest scoring season of his career as well, just because of the system that Boston plays in and how I think that's going to bring his game to life, right? Bring the best out of him from a statistical standpoint. So I think we got to chill out. I think we got to chill out on the, Boston, this is a wash year. Oh, they need to tank. Boston is going to be competitive. And the reason I don't like the tanking thing for a team like Boston is Boston has championship aspirations every year, right? They're similar to the Lakers where they're expected to, from their fan base, to win every year or be competitive every year. And once you start losing, it is very hard to pull yourself out of that. Now, do I think the Celtics ultimately, once Jason Tatum comes back, whether it's the end of this year or next year, could turn it around and just start winning once they have their best player back? Sure, I do think that they're capable of doing that, but it's hard. It's hard to change once you start losing. Losing breeds losing habits, breeds, a spiral that you just don't want to commit your franchise to. You know what I'm saying? So I would rather see them go out and compete. And dare I say, this roster, right? When you got, Derek White, Anfernee, Jalen, um, uh, big guy, big Portuguese kid, probably will start at the center. Um, and who will be their four-man? Who will be their four-man? Um, I'm drawing a blank here. Let me look. Let me look at Boston Celtics roster. I don't know why I'm drawing a blank. So we got Jalen, Anfernee will be in the starting lineup. Derek White, Peyton Pritchard will still come off the bench. Uh, Nemias Quieta. That's the center I'm talking about from Portugal. Listen, I watched a lot of Portugal basketball because there's an Alaskan guy on Portuguese national team, and that big fella's a dog, right? He's good. He's talented. He's skilled. He's athletic. He can protect the rim. He can move his feet well. I think he'll probably be their starting center. And then maybe Sam. Do you think they start Sam Hauser if Sam's healthy? Maybe that's their fifth guy that they start. And then I really liked the acquisition of Chris Boucher over from Toronto. They signed him just to give you some more wing depth. Losing a guy like Jason Tatum, I think that was a great pickup. And then you got, I don't know if a guy like Luke Garza will play much, but possibly he'll be, like a bench big and stuff. So I say all this to say, when I go down the roster on the Boston Celtics, you talk about Jason Tatum not being there. I get it, right? One of the top 5 player in the NBA, the best player on your team. You lose a guy like that, it's tough. It's definitely tough. I can empathize with that. I get it. But also, I think this roster is still a top 5 roster in the East, potentially. When I think about teams like the Milwaukee Bucks, this team is better than the Milwaukee Bucks, especially in the regular season. When I think about a team like the Detroit Pistons, who won 44 games last season, this team is neck and neck with the Detroit Pistons. Maybe a little bit better because they have been there before, right? They're more experienced. And even though Detroit got a little bit of taste of winning last year, I still think these guys have more experience, and I would not be surprised if these guys were still a top 5 seed. And I don't think that's what the expectation is. I think from a lot of media, especially when Jason Tatum initially went down, it was, they're a playing team at best. Should they just tank to try and, take advantage of what's going to be a booming draft next season? And I don't think that's the way to go. I think this team can be competitive still. I think in a wide open East, if you stay competitive, and Jason Tatum, we've watched his recovery. We see how good he looks. Already dribbling, doing full court drills, running up and down the court. Obviously, no contact or anything like that. It's only 4 months, but still moving good, looking good. You make a run for it, and then February, let's say, Jason Tatum, 10 months post surgery, is now ready to work his way back into the lineup. Maybe he's playing a little bit, and now you can make a run for it in a wide open East. So I don't like the idea of these guys just throwing in the towel, them not being good enough. I think they can definitely stay afloat, definitely stay in the playoff hunt. Honestly, I would say with their system, the amount of threes they shoot, the volume in which they get them up, and the percentage they hit them at, they're going to always be competitive. And not only that, they have guys who can take and make these shots. So yeah, in terms of the Boston Celtics, man, I think they will be a top 5 seed if I had to put my money on it. I don't think that's a stretch. Top 6 for sure. I think they right now have a better roster than the Milwaukee Bucks, who I think will be a playoff team with Giannis, obviously the best player in the East. But yeah, I think they're right there with, like, why is Detroit just head and shoulders better than them? I think Cade is the best player between those two teams, probably. Close between him and Jalen, but I think Cade gets the nod right now. But again, systems take you a long ways, and coaching can take you a long way. And I think Boston has both of those things. So I think Boston will be a lot better than what people think. That's what I'll say. I think they'll be a lot better than what people think, and I think they'll finish as the top 5 seed next season. I think that's, if I had to put my money on it, that's what I would say. Okay, moving on. I want to talk about the Lakers briefly as well. Obviously, you know, been a good preseason for them just to kind of, they've lost, I think they're 1-2, so I'm not saying from a winning perspective, but it's been a good preseason to just see what this team is going to look like, right? I've watched all their preseason games, and LeBron obviously will be out for like the first month of the season, it's looking like. Luka hasn't played in the preseason yet. But there's a lot of things that I saw, and I was like, oh, this is promising, right? This is promising. I like what I'm seeing here. And, one of those has been DeAndre Ayton's effort. If he can sustain that level of effort throughout the season, I love that for the Lakers, right? I absolutely love that for the Lakers. And I love that for Ayton because that means that he's going to be able to continue to progress and be, a staple center on a franchise for years to come, whether it's the Lakers or not, right? Like if he found more money someplace else or whatever at the end of the season, is what it is. But, I hope he can sustain this level of effort because we know what the talent is with Ayton, right? He's a great finisher from the mid-range. He's a great roller. He reads screens really well. He plays off of pick and roll guys really well. So whether that's Austin Reeves, whether that's Luka, LeBron when he comes back, he plays off of all these guys really well. And I think it's going to be exciting to see once you have all these playmakers on the court with him, how all this stuff looks. So really excited to see Ayton's growth and how he competes at a high level. Jared Vanderbilt, I talked about last week. I want to be clear here. I'm not saying he's going to be the best shooter ever. I'm not saying he's going to be the best, offensive player ever, or, the best offensive role player, and he's going to shoot the ball 40% or what have you. But you can see the work that he put in during the offseason. I think we discredit how tough it is to return from injury. Or excuse me, let me rephrase this. I think we don't realize how tough it is to progress while you're injured. You literally cannot work on your game while you're injured. And he had some serious injuries over the past 2 seasons that essentially just stalled his growth. Like imagine how much further along he would be if during the off seasons over the past 2 years, he was able to actually put work in on the areas that we know he needs to, right? That 3-point jump shot, getting downhill, finishing at the rim, being a better finisher, being a more consistent finisher, etc. He's been able to do some of that work this summer. And even though it's delayed, I still think Jared Vanderbilt, with his work ethic, with the level at which he competes on the court, will still ultimately get there. And what I'm saying he will get to is, I think if he's able to get his 3-point shot to a point where you don't want to necessarily leave him open, right? Like he's not just a guy you play 10 feet off of and just let him shoot. And let's say he can shoot 35% from 3. I think that's right at about league average. If he could do that, he can be one of the best role players in the NBA. I don't think that's like a absurd statement to make, right? The way he competes on the defensive end of the floor is very high level for a role player. The way he rebounds, does the dirty work, sprints up and down the court, does all those little things is very high level, and it's something that most teams really need. Obviously, we know the offense has been a big factor, right? And if you can't score and if you can't be a factor on offense, then your team just becomes so much easier to guard because you're essentially just not being guarded while one other guy who can score is getting guarded by 2 guys. So with that being said, if he can become that and he could be a guy who can stay on the floor consistently because his offense catches up a little bit, right, then I think he can go a long way. And I know people will look at some of his stats from like last season, but the season before he got hurt, just to be clear, he shot 56% from the field and I think 33% from 3. So 33, not great. 56% from the field is really good. Obviously, his shot profile is, layups or threes, or layups, dunks, or threes. So we get why the field goal percentage is high. But at the same time, 33% from where he started from shows growth, right? And it shows growth right up until he started getting hurt. So now one could surmise that now that he can stay healthy and consistently continue to work, that his jumper will continue to get better, his finishing will continue to get better, his offensive decision making will just continue to get better. And I would not be surprised if he's able to really dial in his offense and be consistent from that end of the floor. Like, he would be our starting four man. I think so. I think he'd be our starting four man over Rui, just because I don't think Rui could ever catch up defensively to what Jared Vanderbilt is, if I'm being honest with you. Rui has made a lot of progress. Rui's great. I think Rui will start the season as a starter, and I love having Rui on the team. I think he's dynamic, athletic, strong, physical, can hit the long ball, can hit the mid-range, can get downhill, finish at the rim. He does a lot of good things, and he's became great at playing off all these primary ball handlers that we have in Austin Reeves and Luka and LeBron. But yeah, I like what I'm seeing out of Jared Vanderbilt so far, and I think if he can continue this, then the sky's the limit for that guy. Honestly, I think the sky's the limit for that guy in terms of what he can do as a role player. But Lakers more generally, I think Luka will play in his first preseason game tonight. LeBron's out for the first month or so. Austin Reeves getting comfortable, looks good, right? Looks healthy. He had a little toe injury similar to what Darius Garland had. I don't think quite as severe, but a lot of people don't talk about that, but he was playing through that towards the end of the season. But he looks healthy. He's moving well. I'm excited to see how he looks. And I have an interesting thought. With LeBron, year 23, I wouldn't be surprised if he's the third leading scorer on the team. And I know that's crazy to say because it seems like LeBron just walks into 24, now, even, when he's on the court. But I wouldn't be surprised if he dials it back a little bit. And this is going to be somewhat intentionally. He dials it back and becomes more of like a Swiss Army knife, like he was at parts of last season, like in February when he was just being a dog on defense. I wouldn't be surprised if he averages like 20 this season. Austin Reeves averages like 22. Luka's going to average like 28 to 30. But like, I wouldn't be surprised. At least, even if he's not the third, like even if he's not behind Austin Reeves, I wouldn't be surprised if they're like neck and neck, right? Like, I wouldn't be surprised if it was Luka averages what he averages, which is going to be the most on the team. Let's say 28. And then you got Austin Reeves and LeBron right at around 20. And you got like DeAndre Ayton and Rui right at about like 15, right? Like, I could see that scoring progression from guys. I think that could be a realistic thing. Because we're going to have a full year of Luka now. I think the ball is going to be in his hands. We know what the offense is going to look like. So I think LeBron will just get more used to playing in that role, and it'll be good for him, right? Because it'll take some demand off of him, and it'll allow him to, I think, conserve energy and just be more effective when we need him to be, which is down the stretch into the playoffs and stuff, and be LeBron and turn it up. Which, to be honest with you guys, we know if there's one thing we can say about LeBron in his age and the way he's been able to create his longevity, he is one of the best people, probably the best ever at like picking his spots, and not just picking his spots in terms of pick your spots on your jump shots or something like that, but literally like picking his spots when he's gonna turn it up a notch, picking when he's gonna dial it back, when he's gonna play with energy, when he's gonna, you know what I'm saying? Like, he's elite at that. He's elite at that. So it'll be interesting to see that. But I'm thinking that the Lakers will be better than a lot of people think, right? I think because we didn't make a ton of moves, the people are thinking, the Lakers will probably be a playoff team, but, maybe a first round exit, maybe a second round exit, but they're not legitimate title contenders. To be honest with you guys, I think the Lakers roster right now is better than the Rockets with Fred VanVleet out. I would choose them over the Rockets. And the Rockets, once they signed KD, were like automatically, everybody was saying they were the best team in the West for a second, besides the Thunder. You know what I'm saying? They were saying it, Thunder, them, Denver are the top three. I could see the Lakers being just as good as the Rockets, if not better. Now, the Rockets have a little bit more youth on their side, and more specifically like defensive youth on their side. You know what I'm saying? They really get after it on the defensive end of the court. But offensively, I don't think the Rockets could put on the court what the Lakers can put on the court and produce what the Lakers can produce. And not to mention, right, like, I think before the experiment at the Suns happened, like, we would have thought KD and Devin Booker would have automatically been like a 50-win team, regardless of what's around them. And it wasn't, right? So I know Houston's a little bit different of a scenario because they just were second in the West, won like 53, 54 games. But still, like, KD's still 37 years old, and I think he's going to produce. I think he's going to be a great offensive player like he always is. But like, how much does he raise their ceiling? Does he really make them a championship contender? I don't know, but I think the Lakers are right there, right? I think OKC is, you got to give them their credit, is far and away. But then I think there's like 3 or 4 teams where it's like the Rockets, the Lakers, the Clippers, um, and Denver. Those 4 teams are really going to compete. Um, and then even, got teams like Minnesota. But to be honest with you, if there's sorry, so we got those 4 teams, and then there's teams even outside of that who can really challenge. Like Dallas will obviously depend on health. Minnesota will depend on like Anthony Edwards' development. But like teams, the West is just so competitive, and there's teams that I think are right there too that could be any of those 4 teams that aren't OKC as well. You know what I'm saying? So it'll be interesting to see. But um, if there's one team I think may drop a little bit this season and kind of fall back, it's the Minnesota Timberwolves. I said this before, right after the season again. I would like, if you gave me a bet on if they made it to the conference finals again or not, I would definitely choose not. I just don't think they got better in in the same way that a lot of other teams did this summer, right? Like when you're talking about the moves that Denver Nuggets made, trading for Cam Johnson, adding Bruce Brown, adding Valanciunas. Um, there's more too that I just can't think of off the top of my head, but like, significant upgrades to that team that just on paper look like they are going to fit Joker so well. You know what I'm saying? That's huge. Lakers signing the center that they needed in DeAndre Ayton, getting some better perimeter defense in Marcus Smart and Jake Lafayette. He'll probably play like 15 minutes a game, but still like a good bench piece. Jared Vanderbilt's actually healthy this season and will be able to play a full season. Huge. The Clippers, we know what the Clippers did. Added insane levels of depth. We know what they did. Um, who else? Who didn't I mention off that list? Houston added KD. You get what I'm saying? So like teams made some insane moves, and Minnesota just didn't. Right? They let Nickeil Alexander-Walker walk for free essentially in free agency. They got some young talent I think that they're high on, and they have every right to be high on it. But when you're talking about making it to a conference finals and trying to progress and get better, not just making it to making it to 2 back-to-back and losing. You're obviously trying to get further, right? You're trying to do more. You're trying to get to a championship. You're trying to win a championship. Now, you're still young. You still got a long ways to go. I get it. But still, right? Like, they're also capable of winning now. And when you only look at things through the context of the future, you tend to miss the now. And before you know it, you're missing the future as well, right? Because you got these windows are short. And when you try, like I said, when you try to time everything right, it just doesn't end up working out. So they're a team who I think can win now, but I think needed to make some upgrades, some changes, some trades, some move some pieces around to do that, and they just didn't. So unless, some of their bench guys just all of a sudden make a huge jump, which I don't foresee them having the opportunity to do with the team and the lineups that are already pretty set in stone over on Minnesota. Minnesota's a team, like, if there was one team that I think could end up missing the playoffs who made the playoffs last season, it'd probably be them. It'd probably be them. And this is excluding play-in teams, right? Because play-in is, who knows? Who knows going to get in the play-in? But if there was a team that was in the top 6, right, who had a set in stone play-in playoff spot, I would say those guys are the team I would look to most as you guys might be in the play-in this season. You know what I'm saying? They're still young, right? And youth really helps in the regular season. So I wouldn't necessarily bet on it, but I will say that I could foresee it happening. Let me know what you guys think on that, because I think a lot of people, especially Minnesota fans, will get mad at me for saying that. But I just don't think they made the moves that are comparable. And when you lose in 5 games in the conference finals, did they lose in 5 the last 2 seasons? Yes. You clearly need to get better. You clearly need to get better, and you can wait. You could try the wait and see approach and just see. But also, I think when teams are getting better as well around you, you may need to, throw some gasoline on the fire and try and speed this process up a little bit. I honestly thought they would shop Rudy Gobert this offseason, because I thought that they would be in the second apron, and I thought they would try to reduce their cap. Now, they're not in the second apron this season, so I think I was just a little bit off on that. But I really thought they would try and shop Rudy while he still can have a very meaningful impact on uh, a contention team, and see what they can get back for him. You know what I'm saying? They just paid Naz Reid some money? Could we get like a center back into more depth, or could we get maybe our point guard of the future back? You know what I'm saying? Like I thought that they would do something like that. So that one was interesting to me as well. I definitely thought that they would shop Rudy. But we'll see. We'll see. You know, I do like Minnesota. I like what they got going on. They got a great core. They got some really good players over there. But I just don't think they made moves that are comparable to other teams in the West, and I think they're going to pay for that. You know, come playoff time, if not before that, when they're battling in the play-in tournament or something like that. But yeah, let me know what you guys think on that. Okay, moving on. There's just a few more things I want to talk about, and let me shift over here. Are there any other teams that I'm interested in talking about now? There was a report that came out that the Bucks and Giannis were really looking into the Knicks as a destination for him. Um, and the reason I bring this up is I just want to talk more broadly about the Milwaukee Bucks. The more I sit with this team, I said, the more I sit with the Clippers, the more I like them. The more I sit with Milwaukee, I don't like them. The roster, I just don't love it, to be honest with you. Now, I think they'll win games because of Giannis. I think they'll win games because they have some good pieces around him, right? I think Gary Harris, picking him up was a good option. Miles Turner, obviously, a guy who just played in the NBA Finals. He's played meaningful basketball the past couple of years. Is a great piece to have around Giannis. But like the guard play, the depth. I said this earlier in the season. This is a team that should be really trying to pursue Russell Westbrook. I think Russell Westbrook instantly becomes your starting point guard, and I don't necessarily think it means he has to average like 22, 7, and 8 or be like old Russ. But I think Russ is a guy who's durable. He plays all the time. He's dynamic still in his older age, and he's a great leader and he's a great locker room guy. And that is a franchise and a team that it feels like to me needs more of that, right? More of the intangibles, more of the small things to really make do. I know you're probably thinking Russell Westbrook and Giannis on the same court, that shooting. I get it, right? But when we're talking about Miles Turner, maybe Gary Temple out there with him, maybe Taurean Prince, maybe Kyle Kuzma's not a great shooter. But they got a few guys who can really shoot the ball out there with him. Now you're athletic, you're dynamic, you're downhill, and you got a guy who can just run the show for you and keep everything together, right? And have some continuity there. I think their point guard will be, KPJ will be fine, but I don't know. It's just I don't love that roster. I don't love that roster, and I think Doc Rivers is a great galvanizer. It doesn't seem like he's always the best X's and O's guy. He doesn't seem like he's always the best with like offensive continuity. And I think, based on what I saw last year in their offense and the schemes that they were running and stuff like that, they need more of that as well, right? They need more structure. Again, systems can take you a long way if you allow them to. But there's certain teams who play with a lot of freedom that probably shouldn't play with a lot of freedom, right? It's one of those things, right, where the worse your team is, the more structure you probably need. You know what I'm saying? I think that's a pretty common thing in basketball that people don't always get. But like the less talented your team is, the more structure, the more continuity, the more offense you need, right? Things that'll kind of take the decision making out of the hands of people and allow the offense to dictate some of that stuff. Right now, there's only so much the offense can do for you, but still, like a great offense that's executed well can take you a long way and can win a lot of games versus better teams, I might add. So I don't love it, man, but I got a lot of faith in Giannis. Giannis is my guy, man. He's my favorite player right now in the league as it stands, and he's just such a competitor. I think he's going to give it his best shot. I think all those guys are going to give it their best shot, and I think they will be a playoff team. But in terms of like them competing in the playoffs and like being a real threat, I just can't see it right now. Tell me, convince me. I need convincing. I'm looking for convincing. Convince me why the Milwaukee Bucks will be a legitimate threat this season. I'm all ears. I would love to hear it. Please tell me. Okay, moving on. I saw some people talking about the Warriors. I saw someone say they didn't think the Warriors were going to make the playoffs. And I got to tell you guys, I think that's absolutely crazy. The Warriors, with their structure, with the leadership that comes from Draymond and Steph, and now Jimmy Butler, they got Jonathan Kuminga's back. I think this year, Steve Kerr will find a way to make Jonathan Kuminga's a more prominent fixture in their rotation. He has to, right? At this point, you have to find a way to play this kid and make it make sense for your team. And I think with Jimmy Butler's mindset and you guys having a full year of the Jimmy Butler experience, by the way, Jimmy Butler is another guy who's one of my favorite players over the past decade, right? Love Jimmy Butler. But Jimmy Butler can also be very passive on the offensive end of the floor, usually intentionally, right? He's trying to allow his teammates to do more, to be more aggressive, to have more of a impact on the game because he can impact the game in so many different ways. If you can find a way to get Jonathan Kuminga to be probably your second leading scorer, right? Let's say Steph averages 25, Jonathan Kuminga average 18. Can he? I think he's talented enough to do that. And then you have Jimmy Butler right there behind him averaging like 16, 17. Then you have Podge averaging 14, and then it just trickle down effect. Moody averaging 12, Draymond averaging 5, but doing everything on defense like he always does, right? That wasn't a knock on Draymond, even though it was, I was trying to make a little joke. But like this team, geez Louise, right? These guys can be really good. And the thing is, Steph just creates so much, right, on the basketball court. He just creates so much fear. You're always checking for him. You're always looking to see where he's going. This team will be good, right? And again, we already gave the caveat there, right? Injuries are a part of the game. We're not talking about if injuries happen because those can happen to anybody. But I think this Warriors team can compete with anybody again this season as well, right? And they'll have a full season to really do it. I think they won't have as many dips because they will have, Jimmy for the full season, Kuminga hopefully in the lineup playing more consistently. Let's be real. Start Kuminga and Jimmy. Okay? Start Kuminga. Can we start Kuminga? Steph, Kuminga, Jimmy, Al, and Dre? Does that work? That's not enough shooting. I mean, you got Steph. You got Al on the court. Those are probably your best two shooters in that lineup because Jimmy's not a shooter. Draymond damn sure ain't a shooter. Kuminga can kind of shoot, but not really. Not consistently as like a spot-up shooter. No, you maybe you can't stop. So maybe Kuminga's like the Jordan Poole. Like maybe he fills that role. Like you just give him freedom off the bench and you start pods.